The Patience Algorithm Ambassador Chen Wei stood at the observation window of Consortium Station Alpha, watching the stars stream past as the massive structure completed another rotation. Behind him, the diplomatic chamber buzzed with the sounds of 70 different species conducting their daily business. The translation matrix hummed constantly, converting thousands of alien languages into comprehensible patterns. After 15 years of service to the Galactic Trade Consortium, Chen had learned to distinguish individual species by sound alone. The clicking of Drellian mandibles, the whistling songs of the Erythian gas breathers, and the grating rasp of Cronathi, throat speech all formed a familiar symphony of galactic civilization. The consortium governed trade and relations between 400 member species across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. When humanity had achieved faster-than-light travel 37 years ago, they had entered a universe already ancient and established. The elder species had looked at humans with the weary patience of teachers receiving yet another class of eager, ignorant students. Chen had spent his entire adult life trying to earn humanity's place at the table. Every slight had been endured. Every insult had been swallowed. Every injustice had been met with calm requests for mediation. That was the diplomatic way. That was the path Earth's government had chosen. Be patient, they said. Be understanding. Show them we can be trusted. Prove we're civilized. The door behind Chen hissed open, and his aide Marcus Rodriguez entered with a data tablet clutched tightly in his hands. Marcus was young, only 5 years into diplomatic service, and his face still showed every emotion clearly. Right now, that face displayed barely controlled rage. Ambassador Chen, the medical supply shipment from Belmont Station never arrived at Quarantine Zone 7. Marcus said, his voice tight. The Cronathi intercepted it. Chen turned from the window slowly, his expression carefully neutral. Intercepted. Marcus nodded sharply. Their patrols boarded our transport vessel in neutral space, confiscated the entire cargo, and left our crew stranded for 6 hours before releasing them. The supplies were marked with medical priority codes. They knew exactly what they were taking. Chen felt the familiar weight settle in his chest. Belmont Station had scraped together those medical supplies for the plague victims on New Terra Colony. 15,000 humans were dying from a virus that the Cronathi themselves had accidentally introduced during a mining operation. The supplies Marcus mentioned represented months of work, diplomatic negotiations, and humanitarian donations from 36 human colonies. Now they were gone. How many did we lose while our crew was stranded? Chen asked quietly. Marcus checked his tablet, though Chen suspected he already knew the answer. Preliminary reports say 437 dead in that 6-hour window. Most of them children. The virus hits the young hardest. Chen walked to his desk and sat down, pressing his fingers together in front of his face. The gesture helped him think, helped him maintain control. 15 years of diplomatic training kept his voice level when he spoke. Have we filed an official complaint with the Consortium Adjudication Committee? Marcus made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. Filed 3 hours ago. The Cronathi diplomatic mission responded within minutes, claiming the transport was carrying contraband technology. They say our medical synthesizers violate their cultural patents on organic manipulation. Chen had heard similar excuses before. The Cronathi Empire controlled significant portions of the galactic pharmaceutical industry. They viewed human medical technology as competition and used every available legal pretense to interfere with humanitarian operations. The consortium allowed it because the Cronathi were powerful, ancient, and influential. Humans were newcomers who should be grateful for any accommodation. What did the committee say? Chen asked, though he already knew. Marcus' voice dropped. They're referring it to a subcommittee for review. Estimated timeline for initial hearing is 8 to 14 months. Chen closed his eyes. 8 to 14 months. The plague would have run its course by then. The victims would be long dead or recovered. The stolen supplies would be worthless. Justice delayed was justice denied, but that was how the consortium operated. The system favored established powers and moved with geological slowness for species without influence. Humans had learned this lesson repeatedly over 15 years. Yet Earth Command continued to insist on working within established channels. Change takes time, they said. We must prove ourselves trustworthy. We must show patience and respect for galactic institutions. Chen opened his eyes and looked at Marcus. Send a formal request to the Cronathi ambassador for immediate return of the medical supplies, along with documentation proving they are not contraband. Cite the Galactic Convention on Medical Relief, Articles 7 through 12. Marcus' face showed his frustration. Ambassador, they'll just ignore it like they ignored the last 15 requests. Then we'll have a paper trail showing we followed proper procedures. Chen replied, his tone leaving no room for argument. Marcus left and Chen returned to the observation window. Outside, a Cronathi battlecruiser drifted past the station, its hull covered in the religious glyphs of their empire. The Cronathi were reptilian, standing nearly 9 feet tall with thick scales and powerful limbs built for their high-gravity homeworld. Their civilization was 12,000 years old and counted 37 species under their imperial umbrella. To them, humans were barely more than clever animals that had stumbled onto space travel. Chen thought about the 437 dead on New Terra. He thought about their families receiving the news. He thought about the medical teams watching helplessly as the virus spread. He thought about all the times he had stood in the diplomatic chamber and argued calmly for justice while aliens dismissed human concerns with barely concealed contempt. The consortium. Chamber session started in 2 hours. Chen knew what would happen. He would present evidence of Cronathi interference with medical relief. The Cronathi ambassador would offer some dismissive explanation, wrapped in cultural superiority. Other species would make sympathetic sounds while doing nothing to help. The matter would be referred to another committee. More humans would die while the galaxy's bureaucracy ground forward at its ponderous pace. Chen checked his personal communicator and found 3 messages from Earth Command. He opened them in order, reading the carefully worded questions about his progress on various diplomatic fronts. The messages were professional and supportive, but Chen could read between the lines. Pressure was building on Earth. The colonial populations were growing restless with the constant setbacks. Political factions were questioning the diplomatic approach. Some were calling for humanity to withdraw from the consortium entirely. Others suggested more direct action. Chen had spent 15 years arguing that patience would pay off, that respect had to be earned through consistent civilized behavior. He was beginning to suspect he had been wrong. The communicator chimed again, this time with a priority 1 message that made Chen's heart rate spike. The encryption was military grade, routed through channels reserved for emergency authorization codes. Chen moved to his private office, sealed the door, and initiated the secure protocols. Fleet Admiral Kwame Osi appeared on the screen, his dark face grave and his admiral uniform crisp. Ambassador Chen, I'm sending this message with full presidential authority. Your diplomatic efforts are acknowledged and appreciated, but the situation has changed. The message contained attachments, dozens of files that began downloading to Chen's secure system. Intelligence reports, military assessments, strategic analyses, all stamped with classification levels Chen had never been cleared to view. He scanned through them quickly, his trained diplomatic mind immediately grasping the implications. Humanity had not been idle during these 15 years of diplomatic patience. While Chen smiled and compromised and filed his proper complaints, Earth Command had been preparing. The colonial fleets he thought were simple transport and defense vessels were something else entirely. The research stations he believed were focused on terraforming and mining, concealed military development programs. The corporate mining operations in remote systems were cover for strategic positioning. Humanity had been building, training, and deploying in secret, while maintaining their public face of peaceful cooperation. Chen felt something twist in his chest. He didn't know if it was relief or horror. Admiral Osi's face was solemn when he continued. Ambassador, you have served with distinction, and no one questions your dedication to peace. But our analysts believe the Cronathi will continue to escalate unless we demonstrate the capacity to respond. The President has authorized protocol override. Your diplomatic constraints are lifted. You are cleared to speak plainly and without regard for political consequences. The military assets are now at your disposal if required. Chen stared at the screen long after the message ended. Protocol override. He had heard whispers about it during his training, a theoretical framework for what happened when diplomacy failed. He had never believed it would actually be invoked. The implications were staggering. 15 years of careful diplomatic positioning could be undone in moments if this was mishandled. The galaxy's entire perception of humanity would shift. But Chen thought again about those 437 dead on New Terra. He thought about 15 years of condescension and contempt. He thought about the Cronathi battlecruiser drifting past the station, its crew confident that humans would continue to file their polite complaints while Cronathi interests prevailed. Protocol override. The authority to stop pretending. The freedom to let the mask slip. Chen checked the time. 90 minutes until the consortium session. He began preparing his materials, but this time he selected different files. Evidence not just of the medical supply theft, but of 17 separate incidents over the past 3 years. A pattern of deliberate Cronathi harassment of human operations. He added reports from intelligence sources he wasn't supposed to have, showing how Cronathi industrial concerns were systematically undermining human economic development. He included classified analyses of Cronathi military movements that suggested they were positioning for something more aggressive than simple harassment. Chen had been sitting on this information for months, unable to use it because doing so would reveal capabilities humans weren't supposed to have. Now those restrictions were gone. Marcus returned with news that the Cronathi ambassador had indeed ignored the request for return of medical supplies. Chen nodded slowly, unsurprised. Marcus, send a message to all human delegations across consortium space. Tell them to prepare for a significant policy shift. Marcus' eyes widened. A shift, sir? What kind of shift? Chen looked out the observation window one more time at the Cronathi battlecruiser. The kind where we stop asking politely. The kind where we remind the galaxy that humans chose to be diplomatic, not because we had no other options, but because we genuinely wanted peace. Apparently, that message hasn't been clear enough. Marcus hesitated. Sir, the other species might not react well to a harder stance. They might see it as aggression. Chen picked up his data tablet and headed for the door. His voice was cold when he replied. Then they'll learn the difference between diplomacy and weakness. I'm done teaching that lesson gently. The consortium chamber filled rapidly as session time approached. Chen took his assigned seat in the human delegation section, a position deliberately placed among the newer species, far from the central floor where ancient civilizations conducted the real business of galactic governance. Marcus sat beside him, nervous energy radiating from his posture. Around them, hundreds of aliens settled into their various accommodations. The Cronathi delegation occupied a prominent position, their towering forms making even the chamber's high ceilings seem cramped. Ambassador Threxcal, the Cronathi representative, lounged in his seat with casual arrogance. His scales were deep crimson, marking him as military caste, and his eyes held the cold assessment of a predator evaluating prey. Council Chairman Velshara called the session to order with a melodic tone that the translation matrix rendered as clear chimes. The chairman was Draenethian, a species of crystalline beings who prided themselves on impartiality and procedure. Today's agenda includes 17 items, Velshara announced. We will begin with a formal complaint from the human delegation regarding alleged interference with medical relief operations. Chen stood, triggering the speaking recognition system. His image appeared on displays throughout the chamber, magnified for species with different visual capabilities. Honorable Chairman, distinguished delegates, I present evidence of systematic violations of the Medical Relief Convention by the Cronathi Empire. The display screens activated, showing the detailed documentation Chen had prepared. The route of the medical transport, the interception point, the inventory of stolen supplies, the casualty figures from New Terra Colony. Threxcal didn't even stand when he responded. His voice came through the translation matrix as a contemptuous growl. The human delegation continues to demonstrate their inexperience with galactic procedures. The vessel in question was carrying technology that violates 17 different cultural patents registered with the Consortium Technology Board. Our patrol acted within legal authority to prevent contraband distribution. Chen had heard similar defenses before. Usually this was where he would file a counterclaim, request an adjudication committee, and begin the long process of legal review. Not today. Ambassador Threxcal, the medical synthesizers in question are based on human-developed technology that predates our contact with the consortium. They violate no legitimate patents. The Cronathi claim is a legal fiction designed to justify theft. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Chen had broken protocol by directly calling another ambassador's statement a fiction. Threxcal rose to his full 9-foot height, his scales rippling with what Chen recognized as anger. The human presumes to lecture the Cronathi Empire on legal matters. Your species has been in space for barely 3 decades. We have maintained order across 17 star systems for 12 millennia. Do not speak of things you cannot comprehend. Chen felt something snap inside him, but his voice remained perfectly calm. The Cronathi Empire has maintained order through intimidation and exploitation for 12 millennia. Your civilization considers strength to be the only virtue and views compassion as weakness. You believe humans are soft because we have spent 15 years pursuing diplomatic solutions to conflicts. You are about to learn why that was a choice, not a necessity. The chamber went silent. Even Velshara's crystalline form seemed to dim with shock. Threxcal stared at Chen with open disbelief. You dare threaten the Cronathi Empire? Chen smiled, and it wasn't a diplomatic smile. I'm not threatening anyone, Ambassador. I'm simply clarifying a misunderstanding that has persisted too long. Humanity has been patient. We have been understanding. We have followed every rule, respected every tradition, and worked within every established system. You interpreted that as weakness. That interpretation ends now. The communicator at Chen wrist chimed 3 times. The signal he had been waiting for. On screens across the chamber, new data appeared. Not evidence of crimes or legal arguments, but something far more concerning to the assembled species. Fleet positions, weapons specifications, strategic deployments, 15 years of secret military development, now laid bare for all to see. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when humanity's polite mode shut off. System failure. The consortium chamber remained frozen in shocked silence as the data displays updated with information that shattered 15 years of carefully maintained assumptions. Chen watched the alien delegates absorb what they were seeing. 347 human warships, none of which had ever appeared in consortium registry. Advanced weapon systems that violated no treaties because humans had never signed limitations. Strategic positioning throughout 16 star systems that the galaxy had assumed were lightly defended human territories. Fleet Admiral Osi had been thorough in his preparations. The intelligence package included capabilities assessments that demonstrated human military technology, was not primitive imitation of alien designs, but unique systems developed from humanity's violent history. Threxcal recovered first, his military training overcoming his initial shock. This is a violation of consortium protocols. His voice carried less certainty than before. All members must register military assets with the Defense Coordination Committee. Chen remained standing, his posture relaxed but his eyes cold. Ambassador, I've reviewed the consortium charter extensively. Article 42 requires registration of military assets deployed within 50 light years of consortium station territory. Every human vessel we registered falls within that boundary. Everything you're seeing now operates beyond the registration zone. We followed the letter of your laws. The Draenethian chairman, Velshara, chimed with what the translation matrix rendered as consternation. Ambassador Chen, this deception undermines the foundation of mutual trust that the consortium requires. How can we conduct diplomatic relations if member species conceal their true capabilities? Chen turned to face the chairman directly. With respect, Chairman, I could ask the Cronathi Empire the same question. For the past 3 years, they have systematically concealed their harassment of human colonies behind legal pretexts. Shall we discuss the 7 mining operations they sabotaged while claiming asteroid ownership disputes? Or the 4 trade convoys they pirated while alleging customs violations? Or perhaps the deliberate introduction of biological contamination at New Terra that led to the plague we're discussing today? The displays shifted again, showing evidence Chen had compiled but never been allowed to present under diplomatic constraints. Surveillance footage of Cronathi vessels deploying viral payloads near human agricultural platforms. Intercepted communications discussing strategies to weaken human economic development. Financial records proving the theft of human resources worth trillions of credits over multiple years. A dozen species began speaking simultaneously, their voices creating a cacophony that overwhelmed the translation matrix. Velshara chimed for order repeatedly before the noise subsided. The Erythian representative, a floating gas breather named Whisper of Dawn, vocalized through their resonance chamber. Ambassador Chen raises serious accusations. If the Cronathi Empire has indeed engaged in these actions, they represent violations of core consortium principles. Threxcal scales had shifted to a darker crimson, a sign of extreme agitation in Cronathi physiology. This is human propaganda attempting to justify their military buildup. The evidence is fabricated. Chen had anticipated this response. The evidence comes from 17 different intelligence sources, including 3 consortium security agencies. I can provide authentication codes and source verification for each item. Would you like me to start with the surveillance data from Consortium Orbital Platform 7 Theta, which captured Chronothi vessels deploying biological materials at New Terra? Marcus whispered urgently from beside Chen. Sir, you're going to start a diplomatic crisis. Chen didn't look away from Threxcal. The crisis started when they murdered 437 humans yesterday. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it. The Drellian representative, a insectoid named Clicking Thoughts, mandibles working rapidly, addressed the chamber. The human delegate makes serious claims. However, we must consider the source. Humanity is young, inexperienced in galactic affairs. Perhaps they misinterpreted actions taken for legitimate purposes. Chen turned his attention to Clicking Thoughts, and something in his expression made the insectoid delegate's mandibles freeze mid-motion. Ambassador Clicking Thoughts, let me clarify something about human history. Before we reached the stars, humanity spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of warfare. We fought with sticks and stones, then bronze and iron, then gunpowder and nuclear fire. We have killed more of our own species than the combined casualties of your last 17 interstellar conflicts. The chamber grew quieter as Chen continued. We studied strategy while your civilizations were learning to share resources peacefully. We built weapons while you built trade networks. We optimized killing efficiency while you optimized diplomatic protocols. When we finally achieved space travel, we looked at the galaxy and made a choice. We could export our violence to the stars, or we could try something different. We chose diplomacy. We chose patience. We chose to learn from species that had moved beyond constant warfare. You interpreted that choice as weakness. The Vidarian representative, a crystalline being named Chime of Silver, resonated with confusion. But Ambassador, if humans possess such capacity for violence, why did you submit to years of disadvantageous treatment? Why accept the condescension and exploitation? Chen smiled, and several nearby species instinctively moved away from the expression. Because we genuinely wanted to see if there was a better way, because we hoped that intelligent species that had survived into the galactic community would be wise enough to recognize cooperation benefits everyone, because we believed that patience and good faith could overcome prejudice and arrogance. We were wrong. A Nexari delegate, a collective consciousness housed in a mechanical framework, spoke with multiple voices harmonized. The human position is contradictory. You claim to seek peace while revealing military preparations. This demonstrates deception incompatible with diplomatic trust. Chen had been waiting for this argument. No, Ambassador Nexari, this demonstrates the difference between seeking peace and being incapable of war. For 15 years, humanity has maintained the largest undeclared military force in 3 spiral arms. During that time, we have not fired a single shot in aggression. We have not seized territory, attacked convoys, or sabotaged competitors. We built strength and chose not to use it. That is peace from a position of capability, not submission from weakness. Captain Sarah Okonkwo watched the diplomatic feed from the bridge of the HTNS Determination, humanity's flagship and the first human dreadnought to operate openly in consortium space. Around her, the bridge crew monitored tactical displays showing the positions of human fleet elements across 6 star systems. They had spent 3 years training in absolute secrecy, running drills in the dark spaces between colonized worlds, preparing for a confrontation everyone hoped would never come. Now protocol override was active and Captain Okonkwo's orders were clear. Support Ambassador Chen's diplomatic position with credible military presence. Don't fire unless fired upon. But make sure everyone understands the capacity exists. Tactical, what's the Chronothi response to our fleet movements? Okonkwo asked her sensor officer. Lieutenant Park checked her displays. Chronothi border patrols are pulling back from human colony spaces. Their main battle groups are consolidating around their core systems. They're broadcasting on emergency military channels, but we're not picking up any targeting locks or weapons activation. Okonkwo nodded. They're smart enough to recognize when they're outmatched. Navigation. Confirm our position relative to Consortium Station Alpha. 30,000 kilometers and holding, Commander Reeves reported. We're well within sensor range, but outside any defensive perimeters. Every ship in this system can see us now. That was the point. The Determination and her sister ships had been designed to make an impression. Their hulls were dark composite alloy that absorbed most scanning frequencies, making them difficult to target. Their weapon systems were built around human innovations in directed energy and kinetic bombardment, developed specifically to counter alien defensive technologies. Most importantly, they carried the kind of strategic firepower that made other species nervous. Humans had learned from their own history that the best deterrent against war was the clear capacity to wage it effectively. Back in the consortium chamber, Threxcal had recovered enough to mount a counter-argument. The human fleet may be impressive to your inexperienced eyes, but the Cronathi Empire commands 17 species and controls 42 star systems. If you believe your secret warships frighten us, you are mistaken. Chen had been hoping for this response. Admiral, please display tactical scenario Cronathi 7. The chamber screens shifted to show a strategic map of the Cronathi home system. 3 moons, 2 major orbital platforms, significant civilian infrastructure. Overlaid on the map were projected attack vectors, defensive response timelines, and casualty estimates. The display showed in clinical detail how human forces could neutralize Cronathi military capability within 6 hours while minimizing civilian casualties to acceptable ranges. The scenario included countermeasures for every known Cronathi defensive system and alternate strategies for dealing with reinforcements from client species. The silence that followed was profound. Threxcal stared at the display, his scales shifting through colors that indicated confusion, anger, and fear in rapid succession. You would not dare. Chen's voice remained calm, almost gentle. We would not choose to, Ambassador. There is a difference. Humanity has spent 15 years proving we don't want war. But if you force us to demonstrate our capacity for it, we will do so with the same thoroughness we've applied to every other human endeavor. The scenario you're viewing took our strategic planning division 4 months to develop. We have similar analyses for every major consortium species, not because we want to use them, but because we learned long ago that hoping for peace without preparing for war is just wishful thinking. Another delegate, a Phexian crystalline entity, spoke with vibrating harmonics. This is barbarism. Civilized species do not plan for violence in such detail. Chen turned to address the speaker. Ambassador, civilized species who ignore the capacity for violence end up conquered by those who don't. Humanity has read your histories. We've studied the Drelian-Nexari War, the Cronathi expansion conflicts, the Vidarian territorial disputes. Every species in this chamber has blood in their past. The difference is that humans are honest about it. We don't pretend our violence never happened. We study it, understand it, and maintain the capability to use it if necessary, precisely because we understand the cost of being unable to defend ourselves. Velshara chimed with what might have been desperation. This confrontation serves no purpose. If Ambassador Chen has evidence of Cronathi crimes, we can convene an emergency tribunal. Military posturing is unnecessary. Chen appreciated the chairman's attempt at de-escalation, but the time for committee reviews had passed. Chairman, humanity has filed 17 formal complaints about Cronathi actions over the past 3 years. How many have resulted in meaningful action? The Drenithians' crystalline form dimmed, which was their equivalent of acknowledging an uncomfortable truth. The consortium's deliberative process requires time to ensure fair evaluation of complex disputes. Chen nodded. 17 complaints filed. 0 resolutions. 43 hearing postponements. 9 jurisdictional disputes. 6 referrals to subcommittees that never convened. Meanwhile, human casualties from Cronathi actions now total over 9,000 dead and 18,000 injured. At what point does your deliberative process become complicity through inaction? Whisper of Dawn, the Erythian representative, vocalized with obvious discomfort. Ambassador Chen surely does not accuse the entire consortium of conspiring against humanity. Chen softened his tone slightly. No, Ambassador. I accuse the consortium of exactly what it is guilty of. Institutional inertia that favors established powers over newcomers. The system was not designed to harm humanity specifically. It simply wasn't designed to protect us either. Threxcal attempted to regain control of the situation. These accusations and military displays are meaningless. The Cronathi Empire will not be intimidated into abandoning legitimate interests. If humanity wishes to challenge us, we are prepared to demonstrate why our civilization has endured for 12 millennia. Chen had been counting on Cronathi arrogance to provide this opening. Admiral Okonkwo, please execute Demonstration Protocol 1. The tactical display updated to show the Determination and 3 escort vessels moving toward the Cronathi battlecruiser, that had been drifting near Consortium Station Alpha. "Captain Okonkwo," Threxcal said urgently, maintaining careful tone control, "please confirm your orders. The Cronathi vessel is not displaying any hostile intent." Okonkwo's voice came through clearly. "Ambassador Chen, the target vessel is the Cronathi battlecruiser Pride of Conquest. She is a military vessel operating in what Consortium regulations designate as neutral space. Weapons are cold, shields are on standby. They're watching us but taking no aggressive action." Chen spoke clearly for the entire chamber to hear. "Captain, please demonstrate the difference between our current diplomatic posture and what we are actually capable of if required. Target the battlecruiser's shield generators only. Minimal force. Show them we can be precise." The chamber erupted into chaos. A dozen species began shouting objections simultaneously. Threxcal roared with fury. "This is an act of war. You cannot attack Cronathi vessels without provocation." Chen raised his voice to cut through the noise. "I'm not attacking anyone, Ambassador. I'm providing an educational demonstration. Captain Okonkwo, fire when ready." On the tactical displays visible to everyone in the chamber, they watched the Determination's weapons arrays power up. The targeting solutions appeared, showing calculations that identified each of the battlecruiser's 4 shield generator nodes. The human ship fired 4 precisely calibrated energy pulses. The strikes hit with perfect accuracy, overloading the battlecruiser's shield generators without penetrating to the hull. The massive Cronathi vessel was left defenseless but completely undamaged. The entire engagement lasted 4 seconds. Captain Okonkwo reported promptly. "Demonstration complete, Ambassador. The target vessel's shields are disabled. No hull damage. No casualties. They are not returning fire. Recommend we maintain position and await their response." The chamber remained silent for a long moment before Threxcal found his voice. His tone had changed, the arrogance replaced by something colder and more calculating. "You have made your point, Ambassador Chen. What do you want?" Chen sat down slowly, his diplomatic mask slipping back into place. "What I've wanted for 15 years, Ambassador. Respect, fair treatment, justice for the crimes committed against my people, and the immediate return of the medical supplies your forces stole, along with full reparations for the victims of the plague your civilization caused through deliberate biological contamination." Threxcal's scales showed conflict as he processed this. "The supplies can be returned. The reparations are a matter for negotiation. The allegation of deliberate contamination is unproven." Chen smiled. "We're past the negotiation phase, Ambassador. Captain Okonkwo, how long would it take to disable every military vessel in the Cronathi home system if ordered?" Okonkwo responded immediately, her tone professional and cold. "Based on current tactical positioning, we could neutralize Cronathi orbital defenses in approximately 45 minutes, Ambassador. Complete suppression of their military capability would require approximately 6 hours for thorough execution." Chen kept his eyes on Threxcal. "You have 12 hours to return the medical supplies, deliver comprehensive reparations for New Terra Colony, and provide evidence that your civilization will cease all harassment of human operations. If these conditions are not met, we will begin systematic neutralization of your military capacity. We will not harm civilians. We will not occupy territory. We will simply ensure you cannot threaten us or anyone else for the foreseeable future." Threxcal straightened to his full height, and for the first time in 15 years Chen saw something in the Cronathi ambassador's eyes that looked almost like respect. "You would actually do this?" Chen nodded. "We absolutely would. That's what I've been trying to make clear. Humanity chose diplomacy because we genuinely believed it was better than the alternative, but never ever assume that choosing peace means being incapable of war." The 2 ambassadors stared at each other across the chamber. 15 years of diplomatic positioning had come down to this moment. The galaxy was watching to see whether humanity was truly willing to back their words with action, or if this was an elaborate bluff. Threxcal must have seen something in Chen eyes that convinced him. "The Cronathi Empire will comply with your demands. The supplies will be returned within 6 hours. Reparations will be discussed through proper channels with genuine intent to reach agreement." Chen nodded. "Acceptable. And the biological contamination?" Threxical's scale shifted to a color Chen had never seen before, something between gray and green that suggested deep shame. "Our scientists will provide full documentation of the contamination incident. It was not officially sanctioned, but it occurred with the knowledge of certain military commanders. Those responsible will be surrendered for justice. The chamber slowly came alive again as species began processing what had just happened. Humanity, the newest and supposedly weakest member of the consortium, had just forced the Cronathi Empire to submit through credible threat of military force. The diplomatic order everyone had assumed was fixed had just revealed itself to be far more flexible than anyone realized. Felshara chimed for attention. This emergency session will be adjourned, while the chairman's office consults with legal counsel regarding the unprecedented events we have witnessed. All parties are requested to maintain current positions and refrain from further military activities. Chen stood and prepared to leave the chamber. As he walked past the Cronathi delegation, Threxcal spoke quietly. "Ambassador Chen, you have taught us a valuable lesson today." Chen paused. "What lesson is that, Ambassador?" Threxcal's scales had returned to their normal crimson, that appearances can be deceiving, and that patience is not always weakness. "The Cronathi Empire will not forget this." Chen allowed himself a small smile. "Neither will humanity, Ambassador. That's rather the point. Comment for next part.